The last time we were together, we were talking about impact of sleep deprivation, lack of sleep. But before we go anywhere, in case you haven't already seen that video, we first needed to gain an understanding of how a lack of sleep is steamrolling our lives into the drain. So please go and watch that first before you decide to get into the nooks and crannies of this one. Today, our focus is the solution. Guys, you're back with your girl, Miss Annie J, and today we are looking at resolves, because it's not enough to say, okay, this is a problem, you need to fix it. Sometimes we need to know how. How do I fix it? This is my lifestyle. I am an insomniac. What are the steps that I need to take where I am now able to sleep? And so today, that is going to be our focus. How do we get ourselves to bed? Because in this underdog society, we like to focus on solutions. And so let's roll. Now, some of the ideas we end up covering today, you may have already heard of. A few of these you may not. I definitely had not. And I was like, okay, this could work. And so in this video, we're going to look at different techniques, starting with resonance frequency breathing.
The number one way to improve sleep, just hands down, is resonance frequency breathing. That's it. So it is getting your breath rate down to 4 to 7 breaths per minute. And the only way you do that basically is 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Yeah. And it's almost like box breathing. Yep. And you can use that as one of them. I love biofeedback apps that you can use. So basically you watch the center open, you're breathing in, and then you close as you're breathing out, or vice versa. That will improve HRV, deep sleep, REM sleep, latency, which is basically how quickly you fall asleep. You should fall asleep within 10 minutes of your head hitting the pillow. Just resonant frequency breathing. And the reason that works is that it improves heart rate variability. And if it improves heart rate variability, that means you're switching from the autonomic nervous system, which is basically sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, which is a tone of your nervous system, your vagal nerve, to parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and relax.
And I have actually tried this technique. In fact, this is the technique that I use most nights. Now, does it work every single time? Not necessarily. Does it work most of the time? Absolutely. When it comes to this technique, the problem that I find in my own experience is that when my mind catches onto a thought, that's where it all goes downhill, because I start thinking about something random and then my mind will just start doing cartwheels. Next thing, 2 hours and I'm still awake. And so that's why I'm saying that most times this technique works for me, but there are times when it doesn't necessarily. So if your experience is similar to what I have just explained, there may be another technique. And I'm not gonna lie, this method is brutal, but sometimes brutal conditions call for brutal rebuttal. So this one is known as sleep restriction training.
There's a thing called sleep restriction training. It's very effective, but it is brutal. We're gonna set the clock and you're gonna wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't care what happens. You're waking up at 5 in the morning, period. And we're not even gonna get into bed until 11:59. So you're gonna have 5 hours of sleep at most. And you know what happens night one? You lay there and you don't fall asleep because you're in that pattern, right? And you're also staring at the clock knowing I have to get up at 5. And you're laying there worrying and thinking about how you're not sleeping, and it is brutal. And you're gonna have a couple of hours of sleep and you're gonna wake up at 5. And you're gonna get up at 5 every single day, period. No sleeping in on weekends, okay? You're also going to not get into bed, no matter how tired you are, you're not getting into bed until 11:59. You do that for a week. What will happen very quickly is your body will start to realize a new pattern of, yo, the second she lets us lay down, you better fall asleep. And you better not mess around during those 5 hours because we're not getting any naps, we're not getting anything else, right? You will start to fall asleep quickly and you will jump right into deep sleep, and you'll go through a pretty compressed but a proper sleep architecture. Every week then, you add back 10 to 15 minutes. So next week you go to bed at 11:45, and you know what happens next week when you get into bed at 11:45? You lay around trying to fall asleep? No chance, right? Because now you've got a week with pretty gnarly sleep restriction. You fall asleep immediately, 10 or 15 minutes the week after that. And so what you end up doing is you backfill until you get back up to your 8 or 8.5 hours. But the pattern you're learning the entire time is, when I go to sleep, I fall asleep, and I do not wake up until that next time. So you stop the overnight wakings, you stop the struggling to fall asleep, and it is brutal, but it is very, very effective.
Listen, save this video from now, isn't it? And refer back to it when you're ready to undertake these techniques. So what I like about this is, even though it is brutal, it's insomnia friendly. For those of us who already cannot sleep at a reasonably early time, there are no naps. And we're likely to fall asleep quickly. Let's be honest, because when you're restricting your sleep, by the time sleep comes, as he explained, you're just going to be out of it, which is what we need. Now, the brutality of this technique makes it sound a bit suspect, okay, in terms of like, how is this affecting me on a long-term basis? But you have to think, we can either do this for a short period of time, or we can continue living a lifestyle of insomnia for however many years. Now, in case those first two techniques are not screaming at you, I don't necessarily want to try either of those, we have got one more. Let's see what you think of this one.
When you're struggling with sleep in the middle of the night and you're wide awake, it's a little bit like trying to remember someone's name. The harder you try, the further you push it away. After about 30 minutes of time awake, you should get out of your bed and you should just go to a different room and do something like, read a book or listen to a podcast. Don't eat, because it then trains your brain to wake up to do that. Don't start working or getting in front of a computer screen. The reason is because if you start to spend a lot of time awake in your bed, your brain is an incredibly associative device. And very quickly, it will start to learn that this thing called your bed is this place where I'm always awake. And therefore, you start to learn through this repeated loop of behavior that I'm always going to be wide awake in bed. And we need to break that association and only return to bed when you're sleepy. And there's no time limit for that. And that way, gradually, it's much better because you will relearn the association that your bed, just as when you were young, it was guaranteed that your bed is this place where you will always be asleep.
Has anyone else ever thought about it like that? When we were kids, bed was sleep time. He's offered a different perspective that maybe a lot of us have not necessarily thought about. So if you're struggling to sleep and you do spend a lot of time just sat in your bed or lying in your bed, like, get up, like he said, go to a different room, read a book, no technology devices, just something, read your Bible. How about that one? Yep, the Bible is a great book to read at nighttime when you're struggling to sleep. And then don't go to bed until you're actually feeling like you're falling asleep. Like he explained, it's like getting your brain to reassociate that your bed is for sleep time, rather than just this is the place where we chill. That's the issue that I have had, okay? As you guys can see, even though I've got my desk, which you'll probably never see because that's where my video stuff is for me to film. And I do sit here most of the day. But sometimes, it's a certain point and it's just like, listen, I just want to relax a little bit. And so that has caused the issue for me. My brain is not able to associate my bed with sleep time. So I hope that these techniques have somewhat raised your awareness even further, giving you some ideas. Implement one of these techniques. One, just maybe start with the light one, the breathing. If you haven't done that before, lie in your bed and do the, what was it called? Resonance frequency breathing. Try that one first. If that is not working, then the one that Matthew Walker just spoke about just now, go into a different room, read a book. And if it's really not working and now we need a little bit of brute force, then that's when I would suggest the sleep restriction training, because of all of them, that one sounds it's not a joke. But we kind of need to force our sleep behavior into a position where it's healthy. You might think that all these techniques are kind of brutal. But if you think about it, what's the worst that can happen when our sleep is already a complete mess? You might even be wondering, why am I emphasizing on sleep so much in the first place? It's because good sleep and bad sleep will differentiate from a good quality of life compared to just simply existing. Like, it makes that much of a difference. And so that's why I feel like it's important, because if you've been watching my channel, I'm very much about feel good factor, well-being. We're trying to get our lives to a point where we feel fulfilled. Life is worth living. Our sleep has a lot to do with that. So we need to get to bed. I hope this has been helpful for you. I would recommend this.
It's a bright new day, you're here with your girl Miss Annie J. I'm gonna give them what they want cause I came to slay, and nothing's ever gonna take my joy away. I'm about that life.